To boost or not to boost? That is the question we'll be answering in this video. With the direction that Sonic Frontiers and Shadow Generations have taken the Sonic series, and with recent comments from Morio Kishimoto, it's clear the franchise is heading into uncharted waters. Something any veteran fan would rightfully be very, very nervous about. The elephant in the room when talking about the future of the series has to do with one very controversial button: the boost button. While some people love the high-speed intensity the boost games offer, others view boost as a crutch and see it as incompatible with more intricate and open level designs. Something that'll only become more important now that Sonic Team will be continuing with the open zone formula. So should boost stick around? Let's dig into it. In this video essay, I'm going to be arguing for and against the boost button debate style. In other words, I'll argue for boost, against boost, then both sides will respond to the other's argument. So, I'm going to be debating with myself. And at the end, I'll decide if the boost button is the new spin dash, or if it's better off withering away under the crushing weight of the sands of time like the lost army of Cambyses. Or Chip. Side note, for this video, we're going to be discussing the 3D games. I don't think there's much competition when comparing boost or not to boost in 2D. Games like Sonic Mania and Sonic Superstars have put the nail in the Rush formula's coffin in my view. But without further ado, Boost, you have the floor. I'll never forget my first time seeing gameplay of Sonic Unleashed on my family's old compact computer. My first thought was, it's like you're actually Sonic. I had always felt like there was a huge gap between Sonic's speed in the games and other media from the era, like Sonic X or the Archie comics. This new game, though, it was another beast. Suddenly, Sonic levels could be packed start to finish with spectacle thanks to the sheer sense of speed alone. You know what that is, flow. And the boost games are master classes in flow. Every hallway has the potential to be a thrill ride if you have some boost to spare. And the sudden transitions between 2D and 3D make the gameplay much more engaging. It's almost like bouncing between two different Sonic games seamlessly when done well. In addition, the boost adds more complexity and depth to Sonic's moveset, particularly the air boost. I love the air boost. In a game series all about replay value and spectacle, having the ability to launch yourself through the air with reckless abandon to potentially shave 2 seconds off your run is mwah, chef's kiss. The air boost opens up so many routes through the air. How could Sonic Team ever justify sacrificing that feeling of rolling the dice with an air boost and discovering a new shortcut? It's so reckless, so chaotic, and it embodies Sonic's character perfectly. Not to mention, there's an element of scarcity to boost. This has been somewhat eliminated in Frontiers, where boost regenerates like stamina in Breath of the Wild. But in many games, boost is a resource you need to manage. If you're boosting like mad with poor control, you're going to struggle to collect rings to fill the boost gauge, so you won't be boosting for long. This teaches the player to learn when and how to use the boost. Frontiers teaches you to be careful with the boost in a different way, as now the boost doesn't damage enemies, so the player needs to be careful they don't run into enemies while boosting. And perhaps most importantly, the boost makes Sonic more accessible to kids. Why? Well, look at it this way. Say you're 8 years old and suck at video games. How much flow are you really gonna get in a non-boost game? It will probably just feel like a regular platformer where you occasionally run through automated speed sequences. Conversely, boost games basically have a spectacle button, and even a beginner can get some serious speed. Tell me, what do you think the franchise will look like in 10 years if kids feel like the Sonic game they played growing up misrepresented itself as being fast-paced and exciting? At the end of the day, Sonic Team needs to keep the boost. If Frontiers 2 doesn't have a boost button, it'll be missing a lot of flow and be a lot less accessible. Yeah, whatever. Ever think about what's been missing from Sonic since the boost was introduced? For one, let's talk about your platforming boost games. What the actual fuck? It's so imprecise in 3D. Even in 2D, it leaves a lot to be desired. Any illusion of precision and control is propped up by the homing attack. If it wasn't for all the springs, enemies, etc. for you to lock onto, there would be no way anyone could clear these stages while maintaining any sort of flow. Not to mention all the big boring platforms. Snore! You know something is wrong when the challenge comes from the control rather than the stage design. Non-boost games have terrific platforming. Look at a stage like Final Rush from Sonic Adventure 2. The stage asks you to jump on these razor-thin rails over a giant bottomless pit. Is it challenging? Yes, but not so much that it feels like it can't be done. In fact, I love this stage. There's a ton of speed and flow, but also a lot of tension. Games like Shadow Gens let you homing attack rails and have lots of footing, cause there's no way for them to expect you to platform at the level you could in a non-boost game. And exploration. Boost levels in general are a lot more linear than the typical non-boost level. Sonic games used to feature such open level designs. Let's look at Kingdom Valley in Project 06. We're going to take a look at just the first segment of Sonic's stage. So the level starts out fairly linear, but once you get off this wind rail, the level really opens up. You now have 3 different directions you can take Sonic. You can go on foot to the right, go straight ahead and scale this building with the homing attack, or you can light dash and bounce your way up the building. Let's put a pin here and explore the upper path. We'll be coming back to the lower path later. So you scale the tower either with the homing attack chain or the tightrope when you get to the bridge. But on the wall you find more enemies, an item box, and a rainbow ring. So you can either cross the bridge or do some maneuvering to go through the rainbow ring. And now there's a segment where you're supposed to wall run, but there are enemies on the wall. If you hit one, you'll follow the lower path below. But wait, what's that up there? A tunnel? Yeah, we're at another 3-way fork in the road. We'll talk about the lower path later. If you take the middle path, you'll cross another bridge and end up at a segment to wall run. Or you can take the tunnel and end up at roughly the same endpoint. If you were observant though, you may have noticed there's a lower path if you fail the wall run here as well. If you fall off, you'll have to fight some enemies and take the tight ropes up to the bridge. Now, from here you can either cross the bridge or take a spring. If you take the spring, you'll find another wind rail that takes you to the end of the segment. On said rail, there's a tricky rainbow ring that can launch you to the end and save you a couple seconds. But there's also a homing attack chain you can just barely reach. So remember the bridge we could have taken, but we took the spring instead? This route gets you back on that other path. So let's say you took the bridge then. Halfway across it collapses and you can either homing attack some tight ropes to get to the end of the section, or fall below and take a ramp. Now, what if we took the lower path off to the right when we entered this portion of the level? Well, from here, we'd fight a couple enemies, grab an eagle, jump on some tight ropes, fight some more enemies, and then we encounter another eagle who takes you to some more enemies, a bridge, and a rainbow ring. But wait, what are those pillars back there? Again, let's put a pin in this spot. Anyway, take the rainbow ring or cross the bridge, and you'll see to your left and the right the 2 upper paths from earlier. And if you jump off the wind rail at the right spot, you can actually get on the path that leads out of the tunnel. But if you stay the course, it'll lead you to a spring, an enemy, and another wind rail, which will take you to the eagle, finishing the section. But what about the path with the pillars from earlier? Those observant enough to notice that route are rewarded with a 1-up and a ticket back to the top path. This is the literal first minute of the level, and there's this much to explore. And I'm pretty sure there's more to check out that I haven't discovered yet, even since this game's release almost 20 years ago. Granted, I haven't played it much until Project 06, because, you know, Sonic 06, but still. Not to mention, there are a lot of ways to cross from one pathway to another. I think you could play this one small segment of the level 100 times in 100 different ways. Talk about sauce! The boost formula has more or less eliminated exploration to this degree in linear stages. Next, I'm gonna say every longtime Sonic fan's favorite word, momentum. If you played the classics or the adventure series, you know the flow used to hit different. The feeling of picking up speed was always so exhilarating, especially in SA2 with all the rail physics. Going fast was a privilege, not a right in the old Sonic games, and that's what made them so replayable. You want to go fast, you're Sonic. So if you lumber your ass through a stage and get a big fat E rank, you're not gonna fucking stand for that. Get back in there and juice it loose. When you do finally pull off that A rank run, it's ecstasy. The non-boost games were so fucking sexy when you mastered them. Keeping the momentum flowing using your environment rather than your moveset makes for much higher quality flow. I guess I'm a quality over quantity type of guy, and I would rather take my time and practice to get some good flow going rather than just have low quality flow over the course of the entire game. Boost Sonic has two speeds, fast and faster. While a beginner might struggle to get speed, once you've figured out the boost formula, you can pretty much get decent speed in any level after that. It's still fun, yeah, but getting S ranks isn't all that hard in most cases, so the skill ceiling is a lot lower. You can't tell me you don't see the difference between holding on to the speed you've built up versus being given so much speed that the challenge comes from controlling it. I also don't agree the boost adds complexity, because for the most part we get the boost in lieu of the spin dash, one of Sonic's most iconic moves. I would argue the spin dash is actually a lot more complex because momentum and physics play a role in its use. The player is encouraged to leverage the terrain to take full advantage of the spin dash. What you call making the game accessible to kids is what I call dumbing the game down. We did just fine before the boost. As long as the game has flow, sauce, and I can fucking play it, Frontiers 2 doesn't need the boost. In fact, it would be better off without it. Your argument is as dated as you are. To start, the platforming might have been weak in Unleashed and Colors, but check out Shadow Gens. Shadow control's great in the air, and the platforming is as solid as a rock. This is actually all the more reason for Sonic Team not to abandon the boost. They've just found the right balance. Now Sonic Team can focus on everything else. On to your next point, the exploration. Ever heard of Sonic Frontiers? You know, the game they're following up on? This is an open world game with a boost button. You don't get much more exploration than that. How are you going to say the boost games can't do exploration when they have a working example? If you want an example from a stage though, let's look at Shadow Gens again. So in Space Colony Arc, you end up in this wide open room around halfway through the level. There's an artificial chaos and a gun beetle you can use to homing attack your way to this rail at the center of the screen. You can run to the left and take a ramp, or run past the ramp and take a spring. There also appears to be a path off to the right. We'll put a pin in this spot and start by homing attacking the artificial chaos and gun beetle to get to the rail. This leads you to another homing attack chain, a straightaway, and a ramp. But over to the right, you can see there's another path you could take with a dash ring and a tunnel. We'll take the ramp for now. From here, there's an artificial chaos and a few lasers to jump over. Get past this and you'll hit another fork in the road. You can either use chaos control here to warp, or you can take a ramp leading to a rail. Using chaos control here warps you down the rail's path to the end of the area. Now let's go back to the initial split in the path, right when you enter the wide open room. This time we're going to ignore the artificial chaos and ramp to take the spring on the left. This is how you get to the dash ring and tunnel we saw along the path we first took. You can take the ramp to get here too. If you miss the dash ring, you can see there are some enemies you'll need to fight below. Go through the dash ring and the tunnel to bounce on some springs leading to the rail at the end of the section from before. Now let's go to our start point again. If we run to the path to the right of the artificial chaos, we can homing attack some enemies into a dash ring leading to the rail we'd end up on from the artificial chaos path. Is that all? Nope, you can actually enter this section from a different angle. If you homing attack these gun beetles before you enter the big open room, it'll lead you to a path along the right wall of the room where you go through some dash rings, homing attack a rail to a second homing attack chain, leading to a dash ring and spring that takes you to the rail exiting the stage. And again, I probably missed something here. Is this as open as Kingdom Valley? Probably not. I mean, you can't even move the camera. But it shows they're moving in the right direction, and the next time around, they'll probably have an area that's even more open than 06 Kingdom Valley, regardless of if the game has boost or not. Hell, SA2, everyone's favorite non-boost game these days, is probably more linear than this game is in terms of its speed stages. And lastly, momentum. Honestly, a fair criticism of the games up to this point, but Frontiers brought back elements of this. It's really fun rolling down hills with the drop dash, for example. Whether or not Sonic Team has incorporated momentum physics into previous Boost games doesn't indicate whether or not they could do so in the future. Not to mention, the spin dash is in Frontiers as an unlockable, and you can use it to build momentum going downhill and launch off ramps, just like the adventure games. Not to mention, there are crappy non-boost games like 06 that have little to no momentum physics, so being a non-boost game doesn't just mean it'll have momentum again. Just because you like momentum, exploration, and the spin dash doesn't mean we can't have the boost as well. The thing Boost has that your games don't is consistency. In the early 3D era, Sega was putting out dog shit games like Boost has had some boring games, but nothing infamous like 06, and for the most part, they've been trending in the right direction. Sonic Team has finally figured out something that consistently works. This isn't the time to start fucking with the basics because you're nostalgic. So yes, Frontiers has a boost button and momentum physics, but I don't really know if Frontiers can be called a boost game. Like, look how slow the boost is, it's not even exciting. It would be a better game if it ditched the boost and Sonic had more weight to his controls. I know I talk about the Adventure series a lot, but those were really the only 3D Sonic games where I thought Sonic's controls were perfect. Sure, most of the boost games feel good, but Sonic's either too fast to do anything precise, or it isn't very satisfying to control compared to the adventure games. Here's an example from an early build of Sonic Adventure. Windy Valley looked a lot different early in development and was way more open, like modern game open. This old build of the level was found on a demo disc for SA1, and paints a much different picture of how the zones could have looked in the game. While the stage has direction, how you get to the exit is totally up to you. There are so many layers and wide open spaces. What's really cool about it is it really showcases how well SA1 Sonic plays in an open environment. It's just a big physics playground. Personally, I have a lot of fun messing around in Beta Windy Valley. More fun than I have in Sonic Frontiers open zones, if I'm being honest. Eliminating the boost would allow Sonic Team to replicate SA1, SA2, or hell, Project 06's control style without factoring the boost into their considerations for how Sonic should control. We have no reason to think the boost is the reason Sonic's controls haven't hit the highs they did in the adventure days. Starting with Heroes, they began to have issues, half a decade before the release of Sonic Unleashed. If anything, I would attribute this to internal factors at Sega. Think about it. Heroes was made right after the fall of the Dreamcast, and was Sonic's first multi-platform release. The entire development of the game was problematic, so fine-tuning the controls was one of the many things that slipped through the cracks. Shadow was doing too much. There's all these different vehicles and shit, so again, they didn't prioritize the controls for Shadow's basic movements. 06 isn't even finished. The retail release was never intended to be sold to the public, so it's likely the fine-tuning would have happened in a later build than the one that actually released. Unleashed was a whole new setup. They were still sorting out the balance between speed and precision. Colors was primarily concerned with avoiding the glaring pitfalls the last 7 years worth of Sonic games had been falling into. People weren't upset with how daytime Sonic controlled, so they made some minor tweaks, but nothing too radically different. Generations, again, was not trying to fuck around with things that worked. Especially on the 5-year anniversary of 06, they played it safe. Lost World decided it was finally time to bring the platforming back, but they overcorrected by making Sonic's base speed slow as fuck and adding a run button, just like Mario, and tried to play it safe on the visuals. So this game wound up feeling more like a Mario game than a Sonic game. Forces goes back to the boost formula. The game really lacks ambition in terms of its gameplay. Lots of boost to win, and is probably the only game in the series where it's basically that simple. So naturally, they didn't try to reinvent the wheel with Sonic's controls. Frontiers was the first game in a long time where Sonic Team really had to go back to the drawing board and rethink the boost formula to work in open environments. And now that they're experimenting, they made a valiant first effort at incorporating more momentum and terrain interaction into the game. It's not like Adventure or the classics, but it could be next go-around if they stay the course. I agree that boost can't be what it was. We're not going to spend the whole game in motion blur city like Unleashed and Generations and still have exploration. But there's no reason we can't keep the boost around in some capacity. Think of all the possible action chains you can string together with momentum, the spin dash, and the boost. Yeah, well, fuck, that's game. At the end of the day, a boost button can exist in some form without sacrificing the physics and saucy level design. Especially now, since it looks like Sonic is going to have a skill tree going forward. Personally, I would like to see the boost become a highly limited but highly powerful resource, almost to a fault, that the player really develops along their journey. Give me no boost to start, then give me enough boost to get up a steep hill quickly, then make the boost deal damage, making it a good way to quickly dispose of some ground-based enemies. From there, give me a little more boost where it can be used as a viable option to travel a good bit of distance. Hell, you could even make generating speed via momentum be what fills your boost gauge. Could you imagine the flow? Imagine rolling downhill, filling your boost gauge, then hitting a ramp and air boosting off it. Imagine making consistent real-time considerations for the terrain when deciding whether to use a roll or a boost to build speed. Plus, by making the boost a scarcer resource, it enables the boost to be faster and more intense than Frontiers, without being forced to design the whole game around the boost. Let's say you could use the boost from Unleashed in Sonic Adventure. Using speed like that would be highly risky and situational, especially if you didn't have much boost to work with in the first place. You would really only use it on straightaways to shave off a second or two, or use an air boost to reach a shortcut here and there. In this situation, I don't really feel like the levels would need to be rebuilt to play well. You'll struggle to find situations to use the boost safely, but that would be the balance between risk and reward. And as you get better at the game, you'll become more skilled with the boost, and will be able to use it safely in more situations. Now, do I think Sonic Team will actually go this direction? Honestly, I have no idea. It sounds like they may not even have the boost in the game at all, which is something I never thought I'd say. I'm glad Sonic Team is thinking critically about the boost regardless. Gaming has changed a lot since the 2000s, and it's worth considering whether or not the boost, as it stands, meshes well with the open-world style of game that tends to resonate with modern audiences. Personally, I think it needs some retooling, but abandoning it altogether? What was the last 17 years for then? By the way, I put out a poll to see what y'all thought about this topic, and it looks like y'all overwhelmingly agreed it's time for the boost to change. Glad we agreed on this one. Just because the boost has been used to replace momentum physics and saucy level layouts in the past doesn't mean it will in the future. We can have the chaotic, out-of-control speed of the boost games along with the buttery smooth momentum-based flow from the adventure era. It's just going to take a little elbow grease and creativity.